Hello and welcome, fellow nerds, back to Nerd In, or just welcome to Nerd In if this is your first time around. I'm your host for the evening, Christian, and today we're going to go over my top 10 board games of all time as of 2024. Let's get into it. Now, before we really dive into this video, I do just kind of want to preface things a little bit and mention that I've only been in this hobby for right about a couple of years now, so I haven't fully expanded my collection and included a lot of games that people talk about all the time, a lot of the most popular ones, and a lot of my collection is mostly newer games, including what I've just played in general, so this is also going to be skewed a little bit in that regard, as well as most of the time I'm playing solo, so there's only actually 2 games on this list that don't have a solo mode, and I'll explain when I get to them why I put them on my list, but most of the time I am basically just a solo player, with those occasional weekends where I can get some friends to actually bust out and put a game on the table. So, just wanted to let that out there, and also this list is not only to give you guys maybe some recommendations on games that you might not have thought of before, or needed more input on, it's also for me to be able to reflect back on later in life to know what my preferences were at this time and compare it to what I like in the future, because this is going to be an ever-evolving list. I already know that some of these are going to be changed by next year. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. I did rank these in order, so let's go ahead and start off with number 10, which is going to be Here to Slay by Unstable Games. This game I've had for a minute. I have a lot of unstable games. I have this, I have Happy Little Dinosaurs with a ton of the expansions. I have Casting Shadows. I absolutely love unstable games, but the one that always sticks to my table is specifically Here to Slay, because yes, it is kind of a versus game where you are directly impacting the other opponents, but it's not in the sense of combat. It's not like Happy Little Dinos where you're just playing war with some stylish themes to it and extra bonus effects. You're actually doing stuff in here, and also the people that I play D&D with as well. So this theme kind of fits into that as well. You're slaying monsters, you're trying to build up a party of different types of characters. Just the whole system to it as well is really fun. Getting the action points on your turn that you can spend in different ways and try to strategize how to play around maybe the luck of the die, because you know that the luck of the die is going to be a factor, so it's like, okay, what effects do I risk using action points for that might not fail? What am I going to be okay with failing? There's plenty of ways to mitigate some of those losses too, and overall it's just a really fun time. A lot of great gameplay out of this. It plays 2 to 6 in about 30 to 60 minutes. I found that if you do 2-player, you can get through a game in about 20 minutes, depending on how things go, but all in all, I mean, just everything you get out of the box is great, and then if you ever want more, there are expansions for this, which are all fantastic so far. So, definitely recommend this as my number 10, Here to Slay. This is one of the 2 games that is not a solo game. So number 9 is actually a brand new addition to my collection, and that is Ostia. I just got this. I backed it on Kickstarter with the Pirates expansion. I actually have the Pirates expansion in this box. It was a fairly tight fit, but I did get it in there. But this is a heavy Euro-style game with a Mancala mechanic to it that I just absolutely love. And it plays in 2 ways. You have your Mancala of ships, and at the start of your turn, you select a tile on that board, and you start by getting resources equal to the number of boats that are on that space for that space. So if I have, like, 4 boats on my wood port, I select that space, and I will get 4 tokens to add to my wood resources that I can use later. And then after that, I take those and I move them Mancala style, so one at a time, placing it around that board, and then I will land on a different space, and that space is where I will take my action. But I've also spread my boats around at the same time, so all of my other spaces will now have different values and land on different action spaces when I use them. So there's a lot of strategy to it, a lot of things that you have to plan out ahead of time, and the Pirates expansion just adds that little bit extra to it. Base game is still great. I'm still kind of tinkering around with it, getting more familiar with it. I have played it a couple times, but I'm still getting used to it a little bit, and I'm incorporating the expansion in slowly but surely. And the solo mode for this is actually not too bad. You get a separate little board with the Emperor on it that you can move, or that you have to move down, that is your round tracker. So if you ever don't meet one of the end game conditions by the end of the 15th round, then the game ends for you. And it's really just to get a high score, and there's titles in it. And I like that type of solo mode where there's no pressure to it. You don't really have a win or lose. It's just kind of, you get a ranking, and I like that. I enjoy that type of thing. It just makes the experience that much more welcoming to a solo player. So anyways, that is Ostia plus Pirates. You don't have to include the Pirates if you don't want to. Just base Ostia is a great time. Let's go ahead and move on to our number 8. So number 8 is another one that is not solo player. We're getting both of them out right away. This also just came out this year, and this was also a game I backed on Kickstarter. Not a thing I do often, but these two games I just looked at, and chef's kiss, they just looked amazing, so I had to get them. And that is Kelp. This is a 2-player only cat and mouse hidden movement game. It's actually got a lot of really exciting things to it. It's asymmetric. One player is a shark, one player is the octopus. The octopus is hiding itself, trying to survive the shark's attacks while also trying to eat its food. And the shark, of course, is just trying to attack the octopus and eat it. I mean, that's really all there is to it. Thematically, it's very simple. It's very fun. There's different mechanics for both players. The shark has a dice bag builder with cards that give it like one-time actions as well as more dice to add to the bag. Whereas the octopus is revealing tiles to activate effects, hiding those tiles to do certain things, moving tiles around, and it is just on the board, moving itself around, trying to get itself adjacent to its own food, setting up traps for the shark to fall into, and just overall trying to survive. The octopus has so many win conditions. The only one is that the shark has to find the octopus and beat a rock, paper, scissors. If they lose the first rock, paper, scissors, then it becomes a coin toss. If they lose the coin toss, then, well, they win. So the shark only has the one way to win, but the octopus can win either by eating all 4 of its food tiles or by just outlasting the shark and letting it fill up its hunger track and starve. So, just the back and forth on this, the asymmetric play, the two different styles of play is just really intriguing to me. Of course, I always give my friends the option, and my wife, and I am always the shark. The octopus is just generally more fun. But the shark isn't that bad either, especially once I clarified one of the rules for myself, because I kept dying a lot earlier than I was supposed to. And once I got that cleared up, the game got a lot better, and I'm just absolutely enamored with this. Of course, I do have the deluxe edition, so all the deluxe pieces and whatnot, but the base game for this, I'm sure, is just fine. It's just upgraded components that feel nicer, but really, that's not too big a deal. So, that is my number 8. Alright, so my number 7 is Daybreak. This was in my top 3 until I had to put everything together for this list, and I kind of regretted having it up that high. It's still a fantastic game. I still absolutely love it. You and up to 3 other people are going to be world powers trying to fight climate change by reducing your carbon emissions and just trying to provide Earth with better things, getting rid of all your different emissions, getting clean energy instead of dirty energy, and facing global crises, which are disastrous. They definitely hurt a lot. So this is a 1 to 4 player cooperative game that, in my experience, plays in about an hour. It's actually not too hard of a teach. It's definitely an easier one for me to be able to get to my table with friends. Usually in about a playthrough, I can teach them fairly adequately, and they've got a pretty decent hang of it. But you're going to be playing cards out of your hand. You're going to be drawing 5 of them every turn. You can either play all of them or keep some in your hand for next round if you want to. But you're racing against the clock to stop the Earth from heating up to a disastrous point where everyone dies. Sounds pretty complicated. It's actually fairly easy, and the base game is not too hard to play. It's very rewarding and very easy to get a hang of, I think, and be able to actually beat the game on your first couple of goes. I did lose my first playthrough of this because I gambled on the 50-50, and that cost me everything. I tried to rush it, and that was my mistake. But if you just kind of take it simple and you have someone that knows the game at the table, it's going to be just smooth sailing. But the nice thing about this is that inside there are just challenge cards and alternate setups you can use to make the game more difficult, or even make it easier if you want to. And there's just so much variety to this game that, like, the playthroughs of this are limitless. Even if it seems like you're kind of doing the same thing every game, you can change and improve the challenge, which will force you to change strategies on the fly. There's just a lot of things to this, but you're building out a tableau of 5 different columns, each of which will have effects based on what card is on top, and those effects can be boosted by icons that are behind them in that column. And just the way that this mechanic plays out to me is so great. Like, the theme isn't the biggest thing for me ever. I just love the way that this game plays, the mechanisms it has, and just the feel of all of it is just great. It's by the same person who designed Pandemic, so there's a lot of inspiration from that, but obviously it's not at all the same game. Overall, Daybreak is a great experience for up to 4 players. At any player count, it is equally as good as every other setup, and I do have to commend it for that. And overall, like I said, it's just a great game. A lot of great mechanisms to it. I very much enjoy this. So if you don't have it yet, check it out. See if someone has it. Try to play it. It's a good time. That is my number 7. And my number 6 is Apiary. Also a game that I just added to my collection this year. It is it's kind of a medium weight Euro style worker placement game. Plays 1 to 5 players in about 60 to 90 minutes is what it says on the box, but depending on how things are going, especially if you're solo, it can go a little bit quicker. If you're in a bigger group, it might take a little bit longer. But overall, it's a great game. It has a unique worker placement system in my mind where your workers have strengths, and once they reach their highest strength and then do an action, then they have to go hibernate, and that basically resets them, and you have to obtain them again at their lowest level. There's just a lot going on with this game. I love worker placement in general. It's one of my favorite mechanics in board games. I don't know why. There's just something so appealing about grabbing that piece and placing it there and then taking the action. I don't know why. It's just, I love worker placement. But in Apiary, you are bees that have gone to space and are now trying to build up their space armada and explore new planets, gather resources, and just overall you're in a race for victory points. It is a victory point salad, but it's one that does it really well and has a lot of cool things going on. I love the player mats that you can expand and add tiles to. And with your resources, it's a very tight resource management system because you can only get resources according to what spaces are available on your board. So you need to expand your farm tiles while also getting your instant action tiles and just carving out a whole bunch of things, building out your spaceship or your space fleet. And really, just the theme is what got me into this game to begin with. I mean, bees in space, where can you go wrong with that? And turned out there was a very good gem of a game inside. I absolutely love Apiary. I do highly recommend it if you haven't tried it yet. The solo mode is very good for this. The automas that Stonemaier does are usually fairly solid. There's only a couple of games where they're not quite the best, but in Apiary it holds up solid. It's not super complicated to manage, and actually sometimes can end up helping you out in the right circumstances, which I love. So, that is my number 6. My number 5 is another Stonemaier game, Libertalia Winds of Galecrest. This is a reformatted version of the original Libertalia, which is a lot more gritty and just had some overall differences to it, only 30 cards instead of 40. But I love the new version by Stonemaier. I know I'm going to get some flack for that, more than likely. A lot of people love the classic Libertalia, and I can agree with that. The theming was better. It had a more Pirates of the Caribbean vibe, where this does appear to be more of an exploration game. So don't get it twisted. This is not that. This is pirates. This is backstabbing pirates that plays 1 to 6 players in about an hour, give or take. And you are going to be recruiting pirates from your hand, putting them on a ship, and trying to get the best loot, and ultimately just get the most coins to be able to win the game. But these pirates have a lot of different effects and different rankings that affect how you will get loot and what you can do to yourself and other players to advance your game state. You're going to be taking 3 voyages to try to get as much treasure as you can, but sometimes you might end up getting stuck with the cursed relic, which is very unfortunate. There is just a lot of silliness to this game. It's very thematic. You definitely feel like a backstabbing pirate the whole time. and you feel like you're getting backstabbed a lot, and it's just a goofy time. It's not a game that takes itself too seriously, and I absolutely love that. Being up to 6 players means it's really great for nights I have my friends over, and we just want a goofy time. As long as no one takes it seriously and competitively, it's just great. And I really love that you have this stack of 40 cards, but everyone is going to draw the same 6 cards every voyage. So everyone will end up with the same cards in their hand throughout the game, but everyone will play them differently at different times. So you'll have different combos going on, people will come up with different play styles, and you're only ever exploring 18 cards out of the deck through each playthrough. So there's always replayability to it, not to mention the randomness of the loot tiles on each day. It's just... everything about this is a great experience, and a thing that's really unique to me is that this game plays differently at all 6 player counts. Technically, from the 3 to 6 player range, it does play the same, but it feels so much different when you're playing it, and then the 1 or the single and 2 player modes are very different from how the rest of the game plays. But even that 3 to 6 player count, it just all feels so much different at each player count. It's a lot of mind gaming, and then it just becomes all-out chaos as you get into higher player counts. And everything about it I just love. Having a different experience with it every time is something that I always look for in a board game. That really makes it amped up a lot more and puts it a lot higher on my list if it can always deliver me a different experience. So I will always want to keep coming back to it. And Libertalia delivers that very well. So now my number 4 game of all time is, this is a Kickstarter version, but I didn't back the Kickstarter. I got this after market from the Game Steward. Huge shout out to them. They have a lot of great games in stock all the time, and it definitely helped me out a lot when I first got into board games to find a lot of really cool games. So this is going to be Septima, the deluxe edition. It does come with the Omens and Shape-Shifting expansion. I haven't really played that yet. I've just been playing the base game, and I gotta say, this is a very cool game. So it plays 1 to 4 players, and it advertises about 25 minutes a player. Again, it just kind of depends on how familiar everyone is with the play style. And at solo players, it still is about 50 minutes to an hour because you have to account for the bot that's in here. Their automa system is not bad. There are ways I feel like it could be improved, but it is interesting. Overall, this is a strategic bluffing game. I don't know how you managed to make that happen, but you're essentially bluffing with other players to try to play cards at the same time to get bonus effects, or you might juke them into playing a card that will raise their suspicion, but you played something else, so then boom. So in Septima, you are a witch with a coven that is trying to become the Septima, or the highest witch in the area, and you are competing with everyone else to achieve that goal first by obtaining the most wisdom. You're going to be brewing potions to heal sick villagers, avoiding suspicion of the villagers because there are trials in this game, which are just insane. There's a lot of different mechanics involved in this game that it's so hard to just really go through them all. The core one that starts off each of your turns is that bluffing hand management. You have each of you has the same cards in your hand at the start of a season, and you're going to announce, or if you don't want to, you don't have to, you're going to announce what card you're going to play, place it face down, everyone reveals at the same time, and if any 2 people played the same card as each other, then they will each increase their suspicion to the villagers, causing them to run into more trouble later on in the game when it comes time to face the jury. Like I said, there's just a lot about this game. It is a very heavy Euro game. A lot of people have said this is actually on the lighter end of Mind Clash Games Euros. This is one of their more medium heavyweight games, but this is probably the most heavy game that I own, maybe alongside Ostia, and there's a lot to it. So this game is not at all for the faint of heart, but I absolutely love it. I love it thematically. I love it mechanically. For me, it's just overall a great game. This is another one that was in my top 3 that just unfortunately barely bubbled out because it is so heavy. It's very hard for me to get to the table with my friends, so I'm stuck playing it solo a lot. And like I said, the solo mode probably could use a couple of improvements, but overall it's still really good. So anyways, that is my number 4, Septima. So now on to my number 3, and this is this is also within the last week. I just received this, but I've played it so much already, and I knew I was gonna love it before I even got it. So my number 3 is Conservas, a solo only board game that It plays in about 20 to 40 minutes. That holds very true. But you are a fisherman going out to sea, netting up a bunch of fish, and catching them to sell on a market. But you also need to make sure that you don't overfish. You need to make sure that the ocean stays populated. There's different markets that have different objectives. Some require you to get more money. Some want you to preserve more fish in the ocean. There's a lot to manage, and there's a lot of game in this small box. It's just absolutely incredible. There's 12 different months, of course, to be able to play. This is the backed version that does have the couple of extra stuff in here. I bought this after market from someone. It's just been a fantastic game all around. I can't state how it's cozy, but it's stressful at the same time because it is a bag builder and you're really hoping to draw the exact tokens that you need, but it never ever happens. So it gives you that little moment of stress, but you also have the coziness of just being out fishing and preserving wildlife. And it's so unique. It's so much fun. I absolutely love Conserve Us, and it's just a great game to be able to plop on the couch and just knock out a quick game of before bed. I just love it for being able to just take it with me and just be able to get a quick game in that feels very fulfilling and very rewarding. Absolutely love Conserve Us. If you can find it, I highly recommend it. So now for my number 2. The bees are back. We have Honey Buzz. This is another game I picked up from Game Steward, so it is a Kickstarter edition with all the deluxe components, but the game itself is just so worth playing. It doesn't even matter if you get the deluxe stuff or not. This is another worker placement game with a fairly unique fashion to it. It's a worker placement to grab tiles that you will be placing in your hive, which then give you your actions once you complete hexes. The way that everything plays out in this game is just absolutely fantastic. It's a very nice, cozy game. Plays 1 to 4 in roughly 45 minutes to an hour. It has so many good things about it. The components feel amazing, even on the base game stuff. And just all of the mechanics to this are really great. The worker placement, if you place a bee on a tile stack and say someone else wants to go there right after you, well, they now have to place 2 bees to go there, and it becomes a beeline. And there's a lot of puns in here, very well written stuff. The rulebook is very nice and easy to manage. It's a fairly simple teach for newer gamers. I haven't had too much of a problem with this one yet. My wife absolutely loves it, so of course that increases its ranking a little bit. And it's a cozy game about bees that have learned economics and are selling honey to the local wildlife. Primarily bears, but there's like foxes and stuff too that you're selling to. And again, it's another theme that just appealed to me. It's bees that learned economy. I mean, you can't get sillier than that in my mind. And it's just, everything is just gorgeous. I mean, just look at that. The whole spread, it has a beautiful table presence. Everything has a beautiful feel. It's really exciting when you pull off a lot of combos by lining up several hexes to go off at the same time. As soon as you place a tile, everything about it just feels great. It's a very, very rewarding experience that has nothing but limitless fun behind it. So, Honey Buzz is my number 2 game of all time for 2024. Now, my number 1 might seem a little odd, because for the most part, these have been fairly cozy and just kind of comforting games, with the exception of a couple like Septima and Ostia. They've for the most part been fairly easy and like lightweight stuff, just stuff that you can put down, play, and have fun with, and you don't really have to push yourself too hard on strategy. You're just there to have a good time. This one is technically the opposite. This is meant to be a little bit more of a competitive game, but you can also just play it as one of those cozy games and just have a fun time with it. And that is Mycelia, is my number 1 game of all time for 2024. This one kind of surprised me as well. I was skeptical about it before I got it, but as soon as I opened it up and played it for the first time, I knew that this game was going to be incredible. So this plays 1 to 4 players in estimates 40 to 90 minutes. Technically, this game can go on infinitely, though. It has endgame conditions that are triggered by the players, and they can just choose to not trigger it. So it's very interesting in that regard, but in Mycelia, you are going to be a mushroom colony trying to spread spores and expand your colony while growing your mushrooms and eventually letting them find their finality by decaying. and getting special effects off of it. There's a lot of strategy to this, but there's also a fair amount of luck. I've seen a lot of people on the forums complaining about the wind die issue with the luck and trying to mitigate that, but personally, I feel that's just fine. The luck behind the wind die is just a risk you're gonna take, and it's a strategy game. You're gonna be taking risks. That's like half the point of it, but you can also strategize in ways to play around those risks, which really help a lot. No, I just absolutely love this game. Everything about it feels nice. The components are great. The mechanics are awesome. I love everything about the way this game plays. The Automa it's not hard to manage, but the Automa does put in a lot of work. I saw some people also complaining on the forums that the Automa was very easy to thwart by just blocking its resources, but I didn't really find that being an issue too often all that much. I think there was a detail in the rules that those people might have missed about that, but regardless, Mycelia is just a great strategy about spreading mushrooms, of all things, but everything in the box is so gorgeous, it plays so well, it's very efficient at what it does. You only get 2 actions every turn, and they have to be different actions. And for people that get stuck in analysis paralysis, I mean, this is actually a pretty good game for it, because since you only have those 2 actions, you're only planning out 2 things to do every turn, so while other people are playing their turn, you can take your time to think about what 2 things you're going to be doing, because they're going to be very impactful, and you only get 2 things to do on your turn at a time, so you have to be very smart about how you plan it out with all the different actions that are available here. So Mycelia, for as simple of a game as it is, it's like chess. It's got simple rules, but the depth behind it is just so absurd and beautiful. And I love everything that there is to do with this game. I've played it so many times solo myself already. Played it a couple times with others, and I love the experience. It has been nothing but a good time for me, and even when I lost, I did not feel bad about it at all. I took all of these losses with grace in this game, because it's rewarding, but can also be very punishing in the right circumstances, and that duality really just keeps me engaged with it all the time. So, Mycelia, my #1 game of all time. And like I said, this list is subjective to just me. This is more of a reflection for me to look back on in the future to see how my tastes change with all of these games, how things move around. Let me know what your guys' top games are in the comments. If you don't want to list out a top 10, you can do a top 3, or even just your top game of all time if you'd like. It's always going to be subjective. And let me know what you think of my games down in the comments. Like I said, I've only been in the hobby for a couple years now. I'm still working on expanding my collection and testing out a lot of different games that a lot of people recommend. So I'm not always on the top stuff here, but I have kind of developed my own taste so far, and as much as board gaming goes. I definitely tend to lean more towards heavier worker placement Euro games, but there are a lot of different types of games I enjoy as well. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video today, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button down below. And as always, we hope you enjoy your stay. Have a good one.